Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reaction to the Dutch Grand Prix. We'll get into all of it and more in just 1 second. Firstly, like and subscribe, of course, and a big shout out to our members, the Joyous James Dakota, Robin Myers, and Sarah Strubble. There you go. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the Dutch Grand Prix, which is not going to be an all-time classic. I don't think it's going to be one that we're going to be talking about for years to come. But on the surface, it was okay, and most of all, F1 is back, which is the most important thing, because a okay F1 race is better than no F1 race. I'm sure we can all agree with that. Now, there's a few things we have to discuss before we get into the race itself. Now, we've already known about Albon and Hamilton. We put a video out about that yesterday. Just quickly, Albon got disqualified from qualifying, so he was starting at the back. Lewis Hamilton had a free-place grid penalty for impeding Sergio Perez. He's starting 14th. Additionally, Kevin Magnussen is now starting from the pit lane as well. He had certain engine elements changed on his car. And what that meant is that Logan Sargent, who didn't take part in qualifying, actually starts this race 18th on the grid, which is his joint 6th best qualifying position of the year. So there you go, fantastic stuff from Logan Sargent. Meanwhile, at the front of the grid, it is Lando Norris on pole, Max Verstappen alongside. Max Verstappen at his home Grand Prix, his 200th Grand Prix as well. As for tyres, it's Yuki, Hamilton and Bottas on the softs, Magnussen on the hards, everyone else on the mediums. And the big question at the start of this race, especially from what the Sky build-up was talking about, was focusing on Lando Norris's start record, especially from pole position. Never has Lando Norris led at the end of lap 1 when he's had pole position. And the big question here is, could that streak be broken? The answer, no. Max Verstappen took the lead immediately off the start line, but it wasn't just Norris who had a bad start. Also, his teammate Piastri was slow off the line, causing Russell to have the jump on him. Russell up to P3. Piastri actually under a lot of pressure from Charles Leclerc at the start of this race, nearly dropping down to 5th place. As we continue through the race now, Carlos Sainz had some good speed, passing Pierre Gasly for 7th place on lap 11. This was a fantastic race from Pierre Gasly, by the way. One of his best races in a long time. Non-stop either attacking or defending from Pierre Gasly. Even in this moment here, the Ferrari, obviously far superior to the Alpine, but Gasly putting up a great defence against Sainz. Unfortunately, not enough. But that was inevitable, really. Gasly very much easily could have gone, okay, well, he's faster than me, I'll just let him through. But no, he got his elbows out, properly got his elbows out, defended his position because he can, and he almost kept it from Sainz. Almost. But Sainz got past there. On lap 13, Norris gets DRS on Max Verstappen for the first time in this race, and Albon is the first to pit on lap 13. A very early pit stop from the Williams crew there. Lewis Hamilton starts to make his way through the grid at this point. Now, Lewis started on the softs. He did have a good stint on the softs. His first stint was very good. It's just the first half of that first stint was quite slow. It feels like it took him a little bit to get either comfortable with the car or get the tyres in the right window or whatever it was. The second half of that soft stint, his first soft stint, was very good. But the first half, a little bit slow, but he starts to get up into gear a little bit around about lap 14 when he got into the points by passing Stroll. Hülkenberg and Yuki both pit now on lap 15. This very much felt like it was just to cover what Albon had done, and I feel like it was a big mistake. Because Albon, I feel, went too early, and then that meant that Hülkenberg and Yuki also went too early. Hulk goes to the hards, Yuki to the mediums. I think all three of those guys, and actually no, Hülkenberg didn't, but Yuki definitely did, and Albon both pit another time, whereas everyone else is running this race as a one-stop. Albon and Yuki are now on a two-stop race. So in an attempt to defend against Albon, they really messed up here. And what happened to Hulkenberg is they just left him out. And at the end of the race, he is just going backwards to a lot of faster cars. So for these two guys here, well, three guys really, their races are kind of ruined come lap 15. Meanwhile, further up the grid, Hamilton continues to go through the grid up to 9th place now, passing Alonso on lap 16. Meanwhile, Bottas pits. On lap 17, Norris starts to put a little bit of pressure onto Max Verstappen, and on lap 18, Lando Norris takes the lead. From this point onwards, Lando is basically unfazed until the end of the race. What I would say, though, the fact that we see the true pace of the McLaren once he gets out in front of Max. The fact that it took 18 laps actually shows how good Max was at the start of this race, because this is like the real, the scales really turn here. Max at the start of the race was very strong, but it seems like the tyres were just getting eaten up, whereas the McLaren was kind of consistent throughout. That Max in that Red Bull at the start, very, very good. Zhou pits on lap 19, and on lap 20, Lando breaks DRS from Max, and I don't think Max saw him again until the end of the race. Logan Sargent pits on lap 22 for the hards, and now Piastri is under a lot of pressure on lap 22. Yeah, it was lap 22, from Leclerc again. Leclerc building that gap back up to Piastri. Leclerc had a fantastic race. For me, Leclerc was the driver of the day today, really outdriving the Ferrari. A fantastic job from him. Quite a few pit stops now. Hamilton pits on lap 23 for hards, Leclerc on lap 24 for hards, Russell 2 laps later on lap 26 for hards, and Leclerc has actually undercut him. He's gained the position from Russell there. I think Russell today had a really interesting race where he seemed to have the pace, but Mercedes just kept on screwing him over. They made so many strategy errors. So firstly, right away here, they've allowed Leclerc to undercut him by leaving him out an extra 2 laps. We'll get on to what they did again later on, but a few more pit stops to go through. It's Max on lap 28, then Norris 29, Perez and Ricciardo pit on lap 30, Sainz is 31, Alonso 32, Gasly comes in on lap 33, a very long stint for Gasly. Yuki Tsunoda pits again on lap 33, so on lap 33 you have someone like Gasly who's doing his first stop. Yuki's onto his second, so Racing Bill's having a bad time as well. Piastri pits for the first time on lap 34, so the hard tyres. Stroll's got a speeding in the pit lane penalty, 5 seconds there. Oscar Piastri has a fantastic move around the outside of George Russell into turn 1, that's for 4th on lap 40. I think Zandvoort has my favourite turn 1 of any track on the calendar, especially when you have it with the banking of the final turn onto the start-finish straight, which isn't very long. Then that first turn we have in Zandvoort, there's something magic about it, because obviously you're carrying a lot of speed into there from the banking and on the straight, but just because you go on the outside, it doesn't mean that the move isn't on. And it's either way. You can overtake on the inside, you can overtake on the outside. Then we have that lovely little curvy bit going out into turn 3 and 4. It's the best start of the track, I think, of any track on the calendar. If you can think of a better turn 1, let me know in the comments. Magnussen finally pits on lap 42, and now we get 2 wonderful little battles here which go on for a loss of the remainder of the race here. Sainz and Perez for 6th place, and then Leclerc and Piastri for 3rd. These both start around about lap 45. By lap 47, Sainz has passed Perez and he's up to P6. Hamilton pits now. He had a 20-odd second gap to Hulkenberg, so he basically has a free pit stop there. They thought he's not really gaining time on, I think it was it Sainz? No, it was Perez who was ahead of him. He wasn't really gaining time, so pit him in, get him back on the softs, and then go on from there. We saw how well he did on the softs at the start of the race. Can he reproduce that with a car which is a hell of a lot lighter now because of the fuel that's been used? So I thought that was a good call from Mercedes at that point. But then, 6 laps later, they decided to do the exact same thing to Russell. I thought this was a huge mistake. So Hamilton, when he pitted, lost nothing. He had a 24-second gap to him with Hulkenberg behind, so he just pits, then he's back out, hasn't lost a position whatsoever, is on faster tyres, just go through to the end now. In the end, it didn't really work because he didn't really gain anything, but, I can see the thought process. George Russell, on the other hand, was in 5th place with Sainz catching him. But the thing is, catching is one thing, overtaking is another. And what we saw here today, when you look at the likes of, a Leclerc and Piastri, you can catch someone and not overtake them. So yeah, Sainz was catching Russell, so they call him into the pits, and he pits for soft tyres. Not only does he lose a place to Sainz, he also loses a place to Perez as well. So Mercedes here have cost Russell, through pit stops alone, 3 positions in this race. And then from there, neither Mercedes really had that much pace in the end phase of this race. If anything, Hamilton had a hell of a lot more pace than Russell did. So it could have ended in this race here with Hamilton actually beating Russell because McLaren had handled Russell's strategy so badly. Now, obviously, you have to say at one point, yeah, but Russell was quite slow in that last stint. And yes, Russell was quite slow in that last stint. But he should never have been on those tyres in the first place. So many mistakes from the Mercedes team here when it comes to Russell. And I'm supposed to be being quite nice to Russell now because everyone was upset at me for the mid-season driver rankings where I put Russell criminally low. But how am I supposed to give him a high point score now with this? Tune in tomorrow to find out, I guess. Alexander Albon pits on lap 56 for the mediums. And then it's just Hülkenberg going a bit backwards to end the race. So Hülkenberg was up in 9th place, gets passed by Gasly around the outside of turn 1. That's on lap 61. Then a couple laps later, Alonso passes him as well for 10th place. Hülkenberg falling outside the points. And as we cross the line, Lando Norris takes his 2nd Formula 1 victory from Max Verstappen in P2. Norris taking the fastest lap on the last lap with a 22-second lead from Max Verstappen. A Max Verstappen type win from Lando Norris, making it look easy. Charles Leclerc completes the podium in 3rd, a fantastic drive for him. The Ferrari really just hadn't looked quick all weekend, but in the race here, in the hands of Charles Leclerc, looked fantastic, especially towards the end, under a lot of pressure from Piastri, but held it together really well to be on the podium. For me, Leclerc was driver of the day by a mile there. Piastri in P4 just misses out on the podium. Sainz is 5th. Perez comes home in 6th. I think that's a pretty good result for Perez, to be honest, because I do think the Red Bull was either the 2nd or 3rd fastest car. You could argue that the Ferrari was faster, so I think 6th for Perez is actually where that car should be. George Russell was in 7th, Mercedes just throwing away a top 5 finish for him. Hamilton in 8th, a good recovery from an awful qualifying for him there. Gasly did a fantastic job. For me, he was fantastic there. I know I said Leclerc gets driver of the day, but it was between Leclerc or Gasly. Gasly, a very underrated drive. When I saw the vote thing come up for driver of the day, I knew Lando was going to be very high, because obviously there's a load of people who love Lando, so I knew he'd be up there. And I thought it would be Leclerc and Gasly. And Leclerc was there, but Hamilton was 3rd. I'm like, yeah, Hamilton's done some good moves here. He's had some good overtakes, but Gasly's an Alpine in 9th. I mean, come on now. Gasly did fantastic. Alonso points in 10th. Alonso did an interview this week where he said the aim of Aston Martin is to finish 9th and 10th. So he did his job. He was 10th. Hülkenberg in 11th. I think I read on Twitter that this is the 6th time this year Hülkenberg has finished 11th, just outside the points. Ricciardo doing well in 12th. 13th for Stroll. 14th for Albon. Good recovery from him. Ocon 15th, Sargent 16th, Yuki Tsunoda a disappointing 17th, but that strategy just really threw it away for him. Magnussen 18th, then it's the Saubers, Bottas in 19th, and Zhou dead last in 20th. No DNFs in this race yet again. Bring on the new engine regulations. We need some more random DNFs in a race. Not even a yellow flag in this race. There you go. I mean, come on now. Yeah, not the most exciting race, not the most exhilarating race. Some very good racing within it, especially some one-on-one stuff into turn 1. There was one moment where there was 5 guys going into turn 1. I think it was Albon, Gasly, Magnussen, and maybe the 2 Astons. I had to check on that one, but yeah, that was fantastic to see there. So there was good little snippets of racing here and there, but overall, not the most fantastic race in the world, but there you go. A good one nonetheless. We'll be back tomorrow for all things driver racing, so make sure you check out that one. And then next week is the Italian Grand Prix. We are in Monza. Should be very fun. I always like going to Monza. And I think the Ferraris are looking quite good. I heard somewhere a couple of months ago that basically Ferrari have designed a car that would go well in Monaco for the start of the year, then go well in Monza for the second half of the year. So we'll see if that theory comes true. I doubt it, but we will see. But what we've learned from this weekend is that this McLaren right now is an absolute rocket ship. It is an incredible car that they have, and Lando Norris is driving it incredibly well. As for the championships, I mean, I think the Constructors' Championship is signed, sealed and delivered in the hands of McLaren as it is right now. I know we could see many more twists and turns as the season goes on. I mean, how many times have we seen the number one car change this season alone? But I think the Constructors' Championship is pretty much sealed to be going to McLaren. There is a bit of a narrative starting to build of can Lando Norris challenge Max Verstappen for the Drivers' Championship? Personally, I don't see it. I think McLaren have reached this peak a bit too late in the season to challenge Max. I think, and even if Norris continues to win, Verstappen's always going to be there or thereabouts. I mean, here he's still second place. I don't think we're at a position yet where Max can finish second place every race and still win the championship. But for now, I believe in Max Verstappen to bring this championship home, but we'll have to wait and see. And the fact that we're even having this conversation of is there a championship battle means that things are going well in the world of Formula One, and I hope you're enjoying it too. As I said, back tomorrow for driver ratings, back next week for the Italian Grand Prix. I will see you then. Until then, though, have a good one. I can't remember what I say. Have a good one? Yeah, I say have a good one, won't I? I'll see you later. I'm going to end the video now. Let me know what you think in the comments. Bye!